It's time for MacBreak Weekly. The day has come. Apple Card is rolling out. We'll tell you how you can get in line. We'll also talk about Apple's Q3 earnings, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and some rumors about the next generation iPhones, MacBooks, and more. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 673, recorded Tuesday, August 6th, 2019. There are 4 hosts. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/MacBreak. And by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. It's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/MacBreak. And by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, who make the home buying process work for you. Their award-winning client service and support will help you every step of the way. Get started online today at rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we talk about the latest news from Apple. Don't let the Mac fool you. Sometimes we talk about iPhones. Lory Gill is here from iMore, managing editor over there. Hi, Laura.
How are you?
I am great. Did you get an Apple Card invite?
I didn't, but one of our associates at the Mobile Nations did get one.
Okay, hold on. I want to
have some
introduce
details
everybody.
for
I
you.
want the detail. I want to introduce everybody before we go. But I'm just asking you one by one. Mr. Rene Ritchie from iMore.com. You're Canadian. I don't think you're even eligible, are you?
I have the Canadian Apple Card right here. It's invisible and intangible.
Wow, it's
It
even
doesn't
better.
exist. But maybe one day we'll get it up in the frozen true north.
And you know, the Canadian Apple Card really saves you money.
Yes, it really does.
Cash back. We never even take any cash. And Ihnatko here from WGBH Boston. Any Apple Card in your hand?
They did send me an email saying, "Don't embarrass either of us by asking for credit." So at least I'm on their radar.
And finally, in studio with us, really glad to have Alex Lindsay. Hasn't been here in a long. You were in Australia.
I was.
How was that?
There's a lot of Australian.
A lot of kangaroos.
The craziest thing is that the thing that surprised me the most. I was expecting the kangaroos and all the other pieces that you would go out and see, but the coffee in Melbourne is the best in the world so far that I've ever had. And I've been to Rome and Paris and London, and London's not very good. But I don't know what went on, but I drank so much coffee and it was
coffee
amazing.
in Australia, in Sydney anyway, is very, very good.
The story, I guess, is that a lot of Italians came over right after World War II.
So it's the real espresso.
It's like they're very serious about it. Like when they say coffee, they don't make you coffee; they make you espresso.
Yeah.
And it's like the little donut shop does better cappuccinos than anything that I've had here, and so it was good. And I walked a lot. I mean, Melbourne's a great walking town, so in the central business district, just wandered around a lot, and then we got out of the city a little bit, and so it was fun.
I'm not gonna. I mean, you didn't get an Apple Card either, did you?
No one said. No one said.
Today's the day, according to Matthew Panzarino, who did interestingly get an Apple Card. That TechCrunch's Matthew Panzarino. That today's the day Apple will start rolling it out to select users, none of whom is on this panel.
Not select.
So
How much
Lory
has he spent on Disney and shoes just in the last 10 minutes on that card? That's the big question.
I'm going to get it the minute I can. I, of course, have read this and went to my email. The way you'll find out is you'll get an email inviting you, and then you go to the Apple Wallet, and your Apple Wallet will have transformed. You'll have a add card button that lets you add an Apple Card. So, Lory, tell us about the Mobile Nations folk who got it.
So I'm not going to use his name. He said it was okay to, but you know how you don't want people trying to get in touch with him for weird reasons, right? Or trying to get him to get more credit cards. So he applied this morning, and it was super quick. It was so quick that he didn't even take screenshots for us.
Yeah, because he just was so anxious to get it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
His credit limit was $5,000 at 23.99%, which is the highest interest rate that they offer. Which I said, wow, really? That high? can I ask you what your credit score is? And his credit score fits within the good standing category. He's got 724 from Equifax and 730 from Experian.
Well, that's
and they
very
put him
good.
at 24% interest rate.
So wait a minute. He has
So-
what I would judge to be a very good FICO score, and he's still getting that high interest rate. Wow.
Yeah, which I thought was very interesting.
What do you have to have
because-
750 to get?
Right?
Yeah.
So I was surprised. My credit standing is excellent. So we'll see what I get, because I'm not the highest that you can get, but does that mean that to get the lowest interest rate, you have to have like 850? Because I mean, the credit score that he has, to me, it should have been more like 15 to 17%, maybe 20, but not the absolute highest interest rate. It's reasonably good credit, you know. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, maybe are they taking advantage of the fact there are going to be so many people who are going to be signing up for this as their second or third card just to have it, that they know that they can offer whatever terms and people are going to accept it? I hope that that's not the reason.
And I'm sure that you can renegotiate with all credit card companies once you've been there with them for a while, and they we'll give you more credit. You can actually say to them, actually, could you lower my interest rate instead? I'd prefer that. So, it doesn't mean he's permanently at 24%. It just was a surprise to me that his credit score, to me, was good enough to get a decent interest rate, and he got basically the same interest rate that you would give to somebody who has poor credit. So. I don't know. That doesn't seem right.
Panzerino has been answering questions all morning on Twitter. I gather he got one from Apple as a journalist because he said that his credit card was in the mail and had gotten lost, which means he got it earlier. But apparently some normal people will be getting it. None of these journalists, but some normal people will be getting it. He says it uses TransUnion's FICO score. As we know, for your rating, it's the back end is handled by Goldman Sachs. There are no numbers on the card, but it is encoded on the mag strip. Technically, Apple Pay transactions are tokenized, so no number is transmitted. Yes, the card shimmers. When you move your phone, he has an image. He's already somehow charged $286 on his card. So
just for testing purposes, it's tax. Yeah. All those meals are now tax deductible. You were testing out the Apple Card.
No signature is required. That's not, the law has changed, and so signatures are not required. But he says, I live in a small town where some people insist. Be prepared to have an argument or don't use it.
That's actually why I do Apple Cash. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Is I use Apple Cash a lot. I transfer a lot from my account to Apple Cash specifically because it means I know I won't have to code in and I know I won't have to sign anything.
That's good.
And
the other thing that happens sometimes, and this. Somebody tweeted him saying this. My small town post office says they insist on checking the signature on the back of the card when you use it.
So
there is no signature, and there's no place to put a signature.
Yeah. Keep in mind that just this weekend, I once again had to teach somebody how Tap to Pay works on their own payment terminal. So this could be the funny thing is not to get the card, but I think that you're going to be educating a lot of people who work for retail.
I didn't actually, when I was in Australia, I didn't get any Australian cash. I literally used my phone for every transaction. And even some people there didn't know. They were like, can I use my phone? And they're like, I don't know. So I just put it over and it would take it.
So and that's actually going to change traveling if
Canada.
You don't have to get paper bills.
Not a single paper bill. I mean,
because I always come back with a little extra currency from every country.
Right. I have.
You gave me a Zimbabwe 10,000 pound note. Once.
I have literally a shelf that has all these different. When I'm going to, if I'm going to Cambodia, I take this. If I go to India, I take this. I take, and I have all these spare dollars that I take that I can manage in the airport or whatever. And I was amazed. I was kind of wanted to see how long I could go. Well, it turns out 10 days you can go.
Australian money.
Literally didn't use it. The only place it didn't work, and the irony was not lost on me, was the Apple Store. So not the Apple Store. Apple Store, there was a My Mac or something, and they couldn't get it to work, which I thought that they should probably fix. But every coffee shop, every restaurant, buying, everything was. Even buying the cards to use the train. It was amazing.
Apparently, while there's no number on the card, nor is there a virtual number there is a virtual number in the wallet app, which will get added to your Safari autofill. So you will have a credit card number you can use in places that need a credit card number. I'm not clear if that's a rotating number.
No, it's permanent until you ask for a new one.
Okay.
If you ever feel like it's been compromised, or just like you for the lulls, you can press a button and ask for a new number. Yeah. But otherwise, it's semi-permanent.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling through Matthew's. He's been answering lots of questions all day. I'm just scrolling through his Twitter. We've already mentioned 1% cash back when you use the card, 2% when you use Apple Pay. This really is all about Apple Pay, not the card. And 3% when you use it to buy Apple gear. Again, that is decent, but not the best in the business. In fact, there's nothing about this card that makes it, from a financial point of view, the best card to choose.
Well, he pointed that out. Like he said, he's a big points person, and he likes to get points for a lot of things, especially travel. And Apple's not playing the points game almost at all. They'll give you cash back on, especially Apple purchases, especially Apple Pay purchases, and a little bit on other things. But they're not making it an offer that people who are points guy sort of type followers are going to want to jump onto.
Yeah. I'm going through it. I think that's pretty much it. He's trying to show it to how it shimmers on the watch, but this is pretty hard to get it. But apparently it does.
We tell what he's buying based on the colors.
Look like
we tell what he's buying.
Show of hands. How many of you are going to rush out and get one? I was thinking I will. You and you and you. The only person who's not is Mr. Rene Ritchie,
and he would.
I was thinking of getting one.
I'll let you borrow
now.
my card, Rene.
Here's one thing that discourages me, and Matthew may be wrong on this, but he says when somebody asks, "How do you cancel it?" He says, "I think you have to call Goldman Sachs." That's
I think you can also message them too.
Can you message them?
But yeah, you have to get in touch with Goldman Sachs, not Apple. Yeah.
So really, it's a Goldman Sachs card.
You can switch to Android.
Yeah, you must have a Apple Pay capable iPhone to even get this card. And as I said, I think this is really Apple helping to support Apple Pay more than anything else, right?
Yeah. Also, when I signed up, to be notified, they were asking for the email address associated with my iCloud, my Apple account, as opposed to my real email address. So maybe this is also a way to get more people into Apple accounts. I mean, I'm sorry, that's a silly thing, because if you have an iPhone, you already do have an account.
Yeah,
Forget this. I'm sorry.
Your friend's interest rate is at the top, by the way, Lory. The Apple says the interest rate will be 12.99 to 23.99.
Exactly.
So
23.99. That's like the worst you could get.
That's terrible.
He has good credit.
And he has it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have 28 days after the closing of each bill cycle to pay before you're charged interest. We have mentioned before, you can't buy cryptocurrency with it. Neither can you buy gambling chips. You can't buy what was the other thing? You can't bet on the ponies with it.
Can't buy porn. I mean, we have our limits here, Leo.
We have our limits. Any illegal purpose, obviously.
Well, I immediately thought, well, what if you go to your local weed store to buy,
That's legal in California,
edibles,
right?
Right, but it's federally illegal.
Right.
So what is their standard for legal versus illegal?
Well, I want you to go and try it.
I think that a
Does
lot
it
of
work at the Google Play Store? That's
Wouldn't that be funny? Sorry, we don't work with Google.
I think most of the across the states that have legalized marijuana, it's still mostly a cash business.
Really?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
You can't
they
go.
have trouble with banking.
No, well,
They're moving
that's
towards
true.
it, but even
I've used a credit card at a dispensary not to buy pot, but to buy a jewel for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I'd bought marijuana, they would have said, no, you have to pay cash. I think that they were set up to take credit cards. But this is Marin.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I said it's still
You have to take
forward
credit
thinking.
cards.
It depends.
Yes.
It just I know that was an issue in Colorado where the problem is they're afraid of
federal law,
and so they keep
it would make a record of you making that kind of a purchase.
Well, no, it's not so much that it was mostly they can't. It's the banking on the dispensary end.
Oh,
is still the issue.
Credit card companies won't work with them.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, well, nor will the Apple Card probably. All right.
Well, it shows you what a lot of FUD can emerge, even with Apple. I saw an editorial the other day about you can't buy cryptocurrency with the Apple credit card. I wonder what else Apple will say you can't buy with it. And if I were the person who replies to such things, I'm saying, because it's the same reason why you can't buy a gift card with a credit card usually, or you can't buy an unsecured thing. You can't buy a secure method of payment with an unsecured method of payment. I have faith that they're going to let you buy a white suit or a white dress after Labor Day if that's what people are worried about.
I don't know. I think that would be good if they prevented that.
I think it's very common
Go ahead, Lory.
I think it's very common that banks they're all starting to go that route. I think at the beginning, cryptocurrency was sort of a little of an unknown quantity. And then once banks started realizing the volatility of that type of currency, quite a few of them, the big majors like JP Morgan and stuff, they've all said, no, you can't buy and sell with cryptocurrency with that. So, it's a Goldman Sachs thing. That's not an Apple thing. That's, that's just the way this bank is making decisions on how to protect themselves, basically.
And I still think with all of this, with Apple Cash and the Apple credit card, they are because the Apple Cash is essentially a savings account that doesn't give you interest, right? And so,
but that's what Venmo does. That's what PayPal does. All of these guys want you to leave your money in their thing because
they make money off the end.
I want to do a little explainer on the whole notion of float.
Right.
Because that's what this is. They make money on your money and you don't give you any of it.
Well, the question that I have is that once the credit card gets moving and all those pieces, when does Apple just say your Apple Cash gets interest? That is a savings account. They just started paying you interest on your Apple Cash, and then they're floating all that money that then supports the credit card.
That would be interesting.
There's a cycle there.
And they wouldn't have to pay much. Even a savings account at a bank is usually 1%. Less. It's less than 1%.
I'm just doing the math on Alex having 6 Mac Pros times 6 displays for each of those Mac Pros, all in his Apple Cash account. 3% what his cash would look like.
But these two things together form a pretty interesting cycle, especially if you think about using credit for your hardware purchases.
Well, that's
also
all
Apple needs. Apple has a completely closed system. People putting money in,
but they also make money from all the merchants, right? It's like a regular credit card. There's a percentage charged to the merchants. I think it's a standard. It's a 2.5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Goldman's gets that. I believe.
Does Goldman get all of it?
I don't know if they get all of it, but that's all. It's all being processed through Goldman's network.
It's kind of important to understand. This really is a Goldman Sachs credit card.
Yes. With
an Apple gloss. That Apple did the software for the wallet. They have the wallet. It ties to Apple Pay, but so does every credit card in the world.
They designed the card.
And they designed the titanium card. But everything else, you're really getting a Goldman Sachs card. Goldman, by the way, wants to get into banking too. They created an online bank called Marcus. And so this is their first credit card. It's their,
this is the Singular, like what Singular was to the iPhone. Desperate company who will let Apple do almost anything that they want, but they're still providing the service.
But truthfully, there's a win-win for Goldman, right? They get all the gloss of the Apple brand. They get to create a credit card that's going to have big uptake. Yeah. That's right. They're good customers.
Goldman would never be able to launch a credit card at this level.
Not with this kind of success. Talk about getting into the business.
Because everybody I know that has an iPhone wants to get a.
Is it a MasterCard or a Visa?
It's Visa, I think.
MasterCard.
MasterCard. Sorry.
Isn't it a MasterCard? I think the logo is a MasterCard circles.
It's a MasterCard. Okay. So MasterCard probably gets a little VIG too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's another question that there's a point at which the government needs to know, if someone is making a lot of money or someone is being paid a lot of money. So if the Apple card was ever being used in such a way that I'm paying you under the table, so because I'm paying you under the table, so I'm paying you with my Apple Pay, and it's going from my Apple Pay account to your Apple Pay account without going into what could be called a bank. That could be a regulatory problem, I think. So I don't know if Apple is ever going to want to let people use the Apple Card as a way to park a great deal of money indefinitely or transfer a great deal of money indefinitely without at some point putting it into an actual bank account. Because at some point the government wants to see that, hey, I wonder why Alex paid Andy $12,000.
Well,
two weeks ago, right before he made that trip to that place where they make the bad things.
I completely agree with you. I think there is a point where it's an official bank Apple account, but I don't think that I think that you could go very softly into that right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that you could just say, hey, we're going to give you interest for the Apple Cash, and then that would be it. They don't have to.
I wonder if Goldman would let them, because Goldman is offering 2.15% on its savings accounts on Marcus. So they really, I think this would be competing.
Unless they use Goldman to do it.
Now, if they use Goldman to do it,
seems like it would be the thing.
That would, and if you gave me 2.15%, I would leave it all in there, right? That's better than you're going to get from most banks.
Exactly, and that's where I think that this,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So they're really in bed with Goldman.
Well, I don't know if they are, but I'm.
It would make it very easy for next year. They would add a new feature saying, "Oh, by the way, now we have investment services. Now we partnered up with Goldman Sachs to give you investment services and retirement services and saving services, and we make it so easy to transfer money on a regular basis or even voluntarily from your Apple Pay account into your bank." Yeah,
that's a guarantee they're going to do that.
You mean Apple has an opportunity? There's a market opportunity every time you have for Apple. Every time you have an industry that isn't run very well, that things don't.
Well, you could say that about Silicon Valley in general. That's the opportunity, is to disintermediate these.
But
old
Apple
school.
specifically is less about because Bezos says your margin is my opportunity. Right. For Apple, it's your ineffectiveness is our opportunity. Your inefficiency, and ease of use. And so I think that the banking industry has and I don't think that the investment industry is that one's so complicated. I think Apple could spend a lot of time in just the consumer side of savings. They could do that for a decade, before they did anything else. And because it builds such a tight relationship with your phone.
Also, given that you've got companies like Robinhood coming along offering no fee stock purchases, that's going to be a tough market, I think.
Well, and also
you're going up against Schwab and Fidelity, and then Robinhood.
It's much more volatile. I mean, people's savings accounts are their savings accounts. Yeah. Whereas if you start getting into loans, now you're starting to worry about the economy, and we don't know where the economy is going to go. I mean, the stock market went down 1,000 points yesterday. So we don't know. That's a really volatile place to live. Whereas savings and basic credit is a much simpler place to be. And I think that it's easier to cut into that market because it's complicated and painful for everyone right now.
I keep checking my
Only
email.
Apple could innovate. Imagine if they could innovate, what they could do.
What could they do? I'm looking at my email. Please, Apple, send me an email. I don't know whether I'm more anxious to get an invitation to next month's iPhone event or a card invitation.
Why not both?
Why not both, Apple? Let's kiss and make up.
What if they gave you your card at the Apple event?
Oh.
As soon as you walk in the door, they just hand it over.
Yeah. At the door. Here, card for everybody.
And they had new iPhones available like at the exit. That would be cold-blooded. While your brain is still filled with like irrational molecules. I need the 512 gigabyte version of this with a larger screen. I want 4 of them.
And if I'm buying it with my Apple card, I'm saving money.
3% back in Alex bucks.
Let's take a little break, and we have the quarterly. It seems like a year ago, but Apple's quarterly results came out 1 week ago, and we've had time to digest. And more importantly, Jason Snell has had time to make color graphs. And
thank goodness. What would we do without that? We can't start talking about it until we have the color graphs.
Jason's funny because I asked him. I said that must take a lot of time. He says no, it takes 0 time because it's all automated. Brilliant. Always create blog posts you can do in your sleep. That's the secret to success. Our show today brought to you by Capterra. I'll tell you another secret to success. Stop using that software that the boss's nephew Joey wrote in 1998 that requires Windows XP and Internet Explorer 8 to run. That's no way to run a business. Unfortunately, I know many businesses, there's still that one XP machine in the corner because they need it to run their line of business software. Capterra is a directory of modern business tools that you can use, that you can make your business run better on right now. It's don't Google. Don't ask friends. Just go to Capterra and pick the software you need to turn your business around. And one of the things I love about Capterra is you get thousands, hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million now. They're up to 975,000 reviews from people who actually use the software. So it's like you are getting the recommendation from a friend. Here's data extraction software. I don't even know what that category is. Once you find the category you want, there's 700 categories, and drill down a little bit, then you can narrow it down based on number of stars, on how it's installed, whether you install it on a hard drive or it runs in the cloud, on how many seats, whether you can, it has features that you want and so forth. And those features, by the way, are specific to the category you're in. So with data extraction software, there's data extraction features. You can check the boxes and then get a side-by-side comparison of the top choices. And then read reviews from actual users. And the nice thing is, oh, look, that's new. Popular comparisons, too. So you can see what other people are comparing in that category to get more ideas. This is all about getting ideas for the software you can use to transform your business. And with more than 1,000 new reviews every day, these are fresh, up-to-date reviews, almost 1 million of them from actual users. Capterra is really good about vetting all the reviews. You're going to know exactly what you're getting before you get it. No matter what kind of software you need for your business, Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution fast. Join the millions of people who use Capterra every month to find the right tools for their business. How much would you be willing to pay for Capterra? I mean, I think this is worth a lot, right? It's free. Not freemium, not we're going to charge you later, not, subscribe to our premium version. It's free all the way down. Capterra.com/MacBreak. Try it right now to find the tools you need to transform your business, to bring your business into the 21st century. Stop using that old stuff. Find something better. Capterra.com/MacBreak. Capterra. Capterra believes software makes the world a better place because software can help every organization become more efficient and more effective. Capterra.com/MacBreak. Software selection simplified. Free! That's my favorite part. Free. Free. All right, 6 colors. To 6 colors we go for the graphs. But before we do that, let's get the top line from Rene, Ritchie. You, of course, had to hustle off the show last week to listen to the call. Impressions, what did you think?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was the first year since 2012 that the iPhone didn't account for more than half of Apple's revenue. And that's a little bit mushy because this is the lowest quarter for the iPhone, and come Q1, come the holiday quarter, iPhone's probably going to be back over that line for now. But it's interesting in that Apple was way too dependent on iPhone previously, and now that iPhone is more of a mix in their products, some people are worried that the iPhone is we're post-iPhone era, the iPhone is over. But I think what Apple's done successfully is build out the wearables. Wearables was up 50%. Including AirPods and including Apple Watch, that right now supplement iPhone but are becoming increasingly independent year after year. And also the content services, which were up even in China, which people, those sell into the massive install base, which Tim Cook said was growing thanks to people still switching, people still upgrading, and people who are still new to iPhone. And the install base of the iPhone was up again this quarter. So I think it's a very transitional period for Apple because the iPhone was a business that made fossil fuel magnates just jealous with profit-driven rage. And now it's becoming a much more mature, much more flat, probably iPad-style business where it will go up and down depending on the newness of models, the level of competition, and how many of the billion people are upgrading any given year. But they're supplementing that with many more diverse products that are built up on top of it. So I think it's Wall Street hated the old narrative, which was Apple was a product company and this is a really big product because they never thought it could last. But they seem much more enamored with the current services and more diverse product portfolio. And I think were it not for the tariff fears we're seeing right now, Apple would have come out of the quarter pretty well positioned going into the next one.
Here's the pie chart that Jason generated of revenue by category. And yeah, you can see the iPhone is only 48%. I mean, it really is a little slice there. But if you include all hardware, iPhone, iMac, and iPad, it's still a hardware company, 68% hardware company. Services coming on strong. And you make an interesting point. 10% of revenue came from wearables, which is a bad name. It was the other category. It includes wearables like the watch and the AirPods, but also the HomePod rather.
Beats, yeah.
Is all of Beats. Is Apple TV in that? Where is Apple TV?
I think the HomePod and TV are in accessories, but I'm not positive.
Okay, so that's the accessory, wearables, home, and accessories. So 10%. But yeah, that's the bottom line. Is we knew we would be watching services, and it's
kind of sort of hardware, but it's differentiated with its software and services, which has always been Apple's thing. Like if you want Mac OS, you have to buy a Mac.
Right.
And
Mac revenue up, which is great. 5.8% increase. I'm sorry, it's 5.8 billion, which percentage-wise is an 11% increase year over year.
iPad was strong too, not to the degree wearables were, but they were still strong.
Yeah, iPad year over year revenue up 8%. So yeah, and I think that's the iPad Pro, right? That's a really important.
The iPad
thing.
Pro, but also they released the Air and the new Mini, which probably gave them a good jolt going into the quarter.
iPhone revenue, the lowest it's been in about 2 years. Typical though for a Q3 to be kind of low.
And also one of the big changes, everyone loves to say that Tim Cook is way too money oriented and way too squeezing profit out of Apple, but margins have been down considerably since the end of the Steve Jobs era. I think they peaked in 2012 as well. And because the components and what Apple's putting in them have been getting more and more expensive, the margins have been going down, and that means the profit from those in businesses. And now that Apple doesn't disclose unit sales and we're looking at profit, it doesn't always look so good for them.
I should point out service revenue was flat from last quarter. I mean, it's been going up. It's 11.5 billion, but it was 11.5 billion last quarter too. Does that mean anything? Services is not as cyclical, as you can see from this chart, as hardware sales. Those are very cyclical. Services should be going up fairly steadily every year. Why did they not go up this quarter?
I like the way that Jason does it in that, like, he tends to do roll. He tends to make it roll rather than doing straight quarter to quarter or year to year compares, which always fluctuate because of the number of the weeks in the quarter or because of the currency fluctuation. So there's all sorts of different factors. But Apple, we're still waiting for those big Apple TV Plus launch. We're still waiting for the Apple Arcade launch. We have Apple News, but that's been factored in for a few quarters now. Apple Music was growing and Apple Care was growing, which I wasn't anticipating. Not that I don't think Apple Care is good. I just didn't think it was a huge growth bonanza for Apple.
Yeah, and so that makes sense. Without anything really new to talk about, it makes sense it would kind of hum along. But expect a bump because of the Apple Card, because of Apple TV Plus.
It does feel like the next quarter could be big.
Yeah. Lory, what was your top line? Because you had to write it all down as you're listening.
I successfully got the transcripts done. Yeah,
that's the top line.
I think just listening to the entire thing, I remember going, "Whoa, really?" When they talked about the wearables category and it's the how well it's doing right now, it almost makes me question, like, did they start throwing something into the wearables category that we don't know about, and that's why it's doing so well and growing so much? But it's just getting more and more successful, and if the fact that home is one of the categories right now, Apple doesn't have any home hardware products, but they did announce that HomeKit is coming to routers later this year, so we might see them kind of get back into the router business, and maybe that's why they've adjusted that category titling a little to include home. Otherwise, why would they do that? Because what are they putting in there that they're calling it home? So it's interesting to see that, and the wearables category. And I was honestly surprised. Not surprised in the numbers, but surprised to hear that iPhone was not above 50% this year. I don't think it means anything negative. I think it's actually a very positive thing.
It's probably good.
Like
you don't want to have too much of your company bet on one product.
Exactly. They're spreading out their portfolio so that if something were to happen and people just suddenly decided that they don't give a crap about iPhones, we're only losing 48% of the business now, which a couple of years ago, it was a huge portion.
Right.
Yeah. So
I do wonder, this September iPhone announcement's only a month off. I do wonder what it is that's going to be in the new iPhone that's going to make me say, oh, my XS Max is out of date. I don't think I can't see them doing anything spectacular. I mean, adding another camera.
They don't mean to, though. I mean, their goal with the iPhone XS was to get iPhone 6 and iPhone 6.
So that's what they're doing now. 6S. They're saying we're going to get the 3 or 4 year upgraders.
Previously, it was like every 2-3 years. Now they're aiming for iPhone 7, so it's gone to about 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's a huge upgrade if you're using an iPhone 7.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be better than it was before. And so there's a lot of people there that are pregnant to buy. Right. You know, so I think that they have a lot of people there that they can keep moving forward. I don't think that they have to. I think I'd love to see a longer lens, you know, on the camera. You know, I do a lot of zooming.
Is that? I think that's the rumor, right? They're going to put a third lens on there.
Yeah. But who knows?
Profit was the lowest it's been in a couple of years as well. A mere $10 billion, which is all right for 3 months. They're on a run for the last year of about $55 billion. That's profit. They do have a much smaller cash holding now because they've been buying back stock. Yeah. And they've also been investing. One of the things extracted from the quarterly report is a big jump in R&D spending for Apple, probably the largest R&D spend in many, 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 many years. Lory, did Tim Cook address that at all when he talked about forward-looking stuff?
You know, I think it was actually a question that was addressed to Luca, and I think he was the only one that addressed it. And
what did Luca say?
It was about the Intel thing. I think he was kind of mentioning that.
So that's one reason for the increase is $1 billion to Intel. That goes under R&D.
Right. And that they're constantly looking to invest in you know, in their future. I think if I remember, there's like this. Do they call it the Cook doctrine, which is you know, we want to be in control of all of the technology that goes into what we do. So they're kind of, you know, just spreading it out, doing a lot of research and development to make sure that they've got... It cracks me
up they call that the Cook doctrine because honestly, isn't that what Steve always said too, is vertical integration. You make the best software if you make the best hardware, and you make vice versa.
Right. We wouldn't have Macs and iPhones and iPads if it weren't for that doctrine that came long before Tim Cook. Right. Yeah.
And it's always been there.
One of the things that...
The only time they moved away from it is when they started licensing the OS, and that was a huge mistake. And that was before Steve. I mean,
that's
Steve
funny because you've been asking for that for years. You want Apple to give away Mac OS.
I want them to give away when they're ready, when they're done with it.
Right.
You know, that's a drop. You know, take a version of it and push it into and give it away.
So what you're saying is we should have a open source OS 9, Mac OS 9.
You know,
System
like,
7, open source it.
OS.
And at least just let people run with it so that they can, you know. But it depends on when the merge actually. You know, we're slowly moving toward. You can just see these two OSs. I don't think they're necessarily going to become one or the other, but you're seeing kind of this. The iPad experience. The iPad experience is more like the Mac experience. The Mac experience is more like the iPad experience.
It feels like the other shoe to drop will be ARM, and and then once we've talked a lot about this, and I don't know how you guys feel. I think mostly the sense I'm getting from a lot of people, including Jean-Louis Gasset in his Monday note, which he wrote last week, is that there will be Intel high-end. The Mac Pro is going to have to stay on Xeon. It's going to have to stay on Intel. But that everything else can go ARM. Everything you'll have a MacBook Air on ARM.
What I'm curious about is now that we saw this, I mean, the most incredible piece of desktop hardware that I've ever seen released. I mean, you know, it
I'm still cleaning up the drool.
I know. It's like I have to clean it up every time I look at the page, you know, and
I would love one of those so bad, but they just can't.
Anyway, so
can borrow Lisa's.
What that keeps having me think about is I want that version of a MacBook Pro. You know, like I want them to build the tank version of the MacBook Pro, and then that stays on Intel, but it's got 2 Intel processors, and it's got it heats up your you have to have a special pad so it doesn't light up your desk when you have it sitting on it.
You can cook soup on it.
But the idea is like to have this gorgeous, massive, super powerful MacBook Pro is something that I would love to see, and then ARM for everything else, you know, and because most people are not using it that way, and the reality is the new MacBook Pros are not MacBook Pros; they're MacBook Air-ish kind of things, you know. So I'm also just using my iPad.
R&D spending. Go ahead, Rene, and then I'll talk about R&D.
One of the things to remember is that when Apple made the iPhone, just in terms of Apple R&D, that was largely resources they already had at their disposal. They just were more efficient with them. They moved people over to make the iPhone. There were some things like antennas and modems that they had to work on, but that was largely just all Mac, the same ID department, same human interface department. same Objective-C department all working on the iPhone. So the R&D was ridiculously low. But as they move into augmented reality and into autonomous technologies, those are all brand new. There's no company, they're buying a bunch of small companies, but it's not like just buying Next and doing something for years and then just popping them over to something else. So the massive increase in spend we see is because they're working incredibly hard on miniaturization, and they're working incredibly hard on breaking brand new technologies, which is always much more expensive. According
to a CNBC, Apple is spending the largest proportion of its revenue on R&D since 2003, $4.2 billion this quarter, which means it's on a pace to spend $16 billion for 2019 on research and development.
Includes micro LED, that includes modems, that includes all the autonomous technology, all the AR technology, all the things that are going into
I agree 100% with what Rene's been saying. That I can't think of a time when Apple has been been working so heavily in stuff that absolutely does not exist yet, where they can't buy capacity, manufacturing capacity for this. They can't buy this technology from somebody else. They can't adapt something that someone else has before they figure out how to do it themselves. Just as Rene said, if you're working on augmented reality, we don't have wearables yet that can really do augmented reality. They're going to have to design it. If they really are serious about autonomous vehicles, we don't really have that yet, so they have to build that. And even the components like micro LED, that is really going to be a big part of the next part of miniaturizing wearables. If we want to get an Apple Watch that's substantially thinner than what we have right now, or can finally last 2 or 3 days between a charge, we're going to need brand new display technology, which doesn't exist yet. And so if Apple really wants to continue to be ahead, I can't remember a time in Apple history where so much of what their plans are involves stuff that they're going to have to cook up themselves.
Lory, did Tim Cook say anything about AR?
It was like 45,000 words. Give me a break. No,
the reason I asked that is he said every earnings call until the last one, he mentioned he would talk about how exciting this opportunity was, and then he seemed to have kind of dropped it.
Yeah, so that is something interesting that we didn't hear. I'm not going to say we didn't hear anything about AR, but we definitely didn't hear that same sentiment from Cook or anybody with this, we're bullish on the future of AR. That kind of, you always heard it for a couple of years now. That's been part of their chant at these earnings calls, and there was no significant mention of it.
What forward-looking stuff?
Not at all.
What forward-looking stuff did they bring up? Did they talk about cars? Did they talk about...
Nope, they didn't talk about cars.
Because as I remember last week, one of the things we said we were going to pay attention to is Tim, because they do this every year, the CEO and the CFO will maybe say, and here looking forward, here's our prospects looking forward. A lot of times that's just stuff for the stock market, like, well, we expect sales, cost per share to whatever, I don't know the terms, but we expect sales of iPhone to go up 10%. We expect the earnings per share to go down 3 cents or whatever. Did he say it? Rene, do you remember anything particular he said about the future that would be of interest to us as users?
It doesn't. Sometimes it really depends on the technologies. Like you had to have Gene Munster every quarter asking about the Apple Television to get that hard nope every quarter. And this year they didn't like there weren't those types of questions. People were really preoccupied with China. One of the only questions was, what do you think? They asked about Catalyst and about the technologies that were introduced at WWDC. And I think Cook was not prepared. Maybe he thought about it, but it was such a kind of a mundane question. He's like, yeah, of course people are super excited about them. We announced them at WWDC. If they weren't exciting, we wouldn't have announced them.
Yeah, that's stock. That's a stock answer if I ever heard one.
Yeah,
Tim Cook did send a message to the president, however, and we talked a little bit about the political crosswinds, tariffs and so forth, and President Trump has tweeted something about Apple should be moving all its manufacture back to the U.S. Apple didn't specifically say where the new Mac Pro will be made, but the implication and the rumors were in China. Cook said he wants to make the Mac Pro in the U.S. as the original Mac Pro was.
Did he say that, or did he refer? I couldn't tell if he was only referring to the original one. He said they want to assemble
the 2019 Mac Pro in the U.S.
That means put the doors on.
Assembly
and
is why Apple requested exclusion from the tariffs on importing goods from China. By the way, Ming-Chi Kuo and others think that Apple will just absorb any tariff costs. The price has enough, the margins have enough resiliency to absorb the tariff. Here's the quote. In terms of the exclusions, That's the tariffs. We've been making the Mac Pro in the U.S. We want to continue to do that. So we're working and investing currently in capacity to do so because we want to continue to be here. And so that's what's behind the exclusions. So we're explaining that and hoping for a positive outcome. This is his answer.
So I didn't know you wanted to, but that's why I'm parsing the words, because they want to. Of course they want to, but will they be able to?
Yeah, he promised nothing. He promised absolutely nothing.
Also, when you talk about making Mac Pros, what are you talking about? As Alex sort of alluded to, are you talking about we'll ship in all the components and we'll just have people operating screwdrivers?
Well, but that's a subtlety the president doesn't care about or know about. So What I was getting at more is that the Mac Pro is probably a platform where build to order is going to be more important than any other Mac that they're making. So it would be to their advantage, at least for sales in the United States, to assemble these in the United States. Or at the very least to make sure that they didn't build too many of one that's not selling anymore. Right. And when they need to get more of, we didn't know more people would be wanting the $30,000 kit as opposed to the baseline model. Great, we'll manufacture more of those. We'll have those in stores very, very quickly. It'd be more interesting if they said that we want to assemble iPhones or Mac or MacBook Airs. That would be, oh my God, because those simply just arrive completely made. There's nothing that takes full advantage of overseas labor and all the advantages you have on using overseas labor. That's going to be the big deal in terms of moving manufacturers to the United States.
And if you look at what Foxconn's doing, I mean, they're working very hard at automating the entire iPhone process. So there's still a lot to do there. It takes a human being to do a lot of it, but they're working. I mean, they've talked about it a lot, about how far they're pushing the automation. And it can come back to the United States if it's automated.
I showed on iOS today, my app cap was these DJI, the DJI who does the Mavic Pro and the other drones.
They pretty much own the market.
Bots?
They make these bots. They're called RoboMaster. This is the RoboMaster S1. It's intended for kids. There's apparently a RoboMaster competition in China, and so they are selling these now for $500 each. But they come disassembled for the most part.
So you have to put them together.
70 parts, several hundred screws, and it gave me a great empathy for the people in Shenzhen who are working night and day to build these, because mostly when you buy this kind of stuff, it's done.
It's done. It comes in,
And I think it's actually, there was a subtle subtext from DJI. Well, you ought to see what we do.
Angry at IKEA. Like, we get so angry at IKEA shelves. Can you imagine?
It was, and by the way, the documentation that they sent out was IKEA style. There was no text. It was just pictures and extremely difficult to parse in some cases.
There is such a massive market coming to the upgrade of manuals. Like in construction, like
these
the fact
were the worst.
Like I'm amazed that IKEA hasn't figured this out. Like, I just want an iPad app that shows me how to do it.
There's some thought. This is a little weird, that IKEA doesn't want it to be too easy, because the more you've invested into building this thing, the happier it turns out psychologically. The happier.
See, but I'm never happy because
it
was never built perfectly.
It's always a little.
I have shelves left over at the end.
Only time it's always like there's a couple of screws and I put one plate on backwards. And it's never. You always look at it going, oh,
but it's yours. But you made it.
But then I feel bad.
But it's your child.
I kind of screwed that one up. And
I think it might. If that was their strategy, it's backfiring, because people talk about how horrible it is to assemble IKEA furniture.
I tell my wife, if she gives me IKEA furniture, that she has to take the kids out of the house because I don't want them to hear the language.
But there's a serious political point to this, which is that I don't think American workers really want that job either.
No, we don't have people that want to do it.
It's done in China because that's where you can get the people to do it.
Well, and it is the.
I've talked to many manufacturing people in the U.S. Who say we would. I was talking to somebody who has a plant in Texas. We would. We can't. We can't hire enough people to do it.
Yep. And seasonally, Leo, they're not even full. They're not even all year-round jobs. They're highly seasonal jobs, which makes them a lot worse for many countries.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's part of it is you may want to assemble it in Dallas or Austin.
It's a good idea, but it's not going to.
But if there's nobody to do it, how are you going to do it?
Right.
Yeah. But if you've offered a contract with medical benefits and everything, as opposed to dealing with a subcontractor, these jobs might become more attractive.
I don't know. If the problem is that if Amazon is getting complaints about the warehouse, the complaints on an iPhone assembly line would be astronomical. I mean, compared to
I'm not sure that Apple would allow the sort of workplace.
But then they couldn't afford to do it. They couldn't afford to do it. I mean, it's much worse. Yeah,
I think they could afford to do it. They'd have to raise the price or lower the margins. But I've seen studies that say it would add maybe $5, $10 to the cost. The problem literally is you can't get Americans to do it.
Right. Your turnover would be high.
You can't get the people to do it. And yeah, you nailed it. If people hate working in the Amazon warehouse, imagine what it would be like to assemble iPhones. It's just not a great job. The good news is the suicide rate at Foxconn has dropped, but that's only because they put nets everywhere. I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but it's I don't know. Some people say it's not the job that's repellent, it's the wage. But if you put that little tiny screw in 500 times a day, and that's all you do, 5 days a week.
Yeah,
even if you're well paid and you get benefits.
I used to do that. I mean, I used to build circuit boards.
Yeah,
it's
grinding.
It's grinding because you have to pay attention enough not to screw it up.
Right.
Like it's not something that's automatic.
By the way, it's something robots do very well.
Well, that's what happened. What was interesting in the company that I worked as when I got out of high school, I started in shipping and receiving. It turned out I was good at packing things, and so they went ahead and put me in, had me start assembling some stuff, and I was, we were good at it, but they moved it was a big economic lesson for me. They moved the minimum wage from $3.25 an hour to $3.75 an hour. And when they did that, the company laid off 30 people and put in a surface mount. Yeah. And they said it was just amortizing over X number of years was all they cared about.
Simple cost.
And they literally just 30 people lost their job, but this one person got paid a lot more money to manage this big machine that just pushed out all the boards. And they just said they couldn't do it until it amortized.
The other, let's see, what else did they talk about? Is that pretty much it?
5G, Leo.
5G. Yeah. There's the buzzword.
Tim would not comment about future products.
They wouldn't say. Yeah. Rumor is it won't be this year. It'll be next year.
And it's going to help. I hear 5G is going to make a huge difference in the rural areas. Have you seen these things?
No, it's not.
I'm just like, you see all these things like how 5G is going to transform the rural areas, and you're like, that's the one place it's not going to transform anything. The
4G they call 5G will be helpful in rural areas, but the actual 5G won't be there.
Let's take a break, and there's more to talk about. We will have that in your picks of the week as well. But first, a word from our sponsor. If you are out in the wild using the internet on an unknown Wi-Fi access point, you might want to check out a VPN, a virtual private network, to protect your security. But you know what? You're in the wild even when you're at home because your internet service provider loves to know all the sites you go to, and in many cases even sells that information to third parties without your permission or knowledge. It's in the fine print. Read the agreement you didn't sign. ExpressVPN is my choice for a virtual private network. It's funny, we were talking on Windows Weekly last Wednesday. Paul was talking about his travel kit, what he uses when he goes. He's using, he's in Amsterdam right now, and at an Airbnb or I guess it was a house exchange. But he says, I don't know what the Wi-Fi is like or whatever, so I use ExpressVPN. I don't think he even knew they were a sponsor, but I thanked him. ExpressVPN, that's our choice. ExpressVPN is easy to use. There's apps for every platform. With one click to connect, and you're protected. It's very fast. This is important with a VPN. You want somebody that's got a lot of servers and puts a lot of horsepower behind it. That's why you want to pay for a VPN. A free VPN is not really worth it. And ExpressVPN is most importantly, and they just went through a independent third-party audit, in no way keeps track of what you're doing. They do not log, so your privacy is protected even with ExpressVPN. They've got a new cutting-edge server technology. They call it Trusted Server that keeps the operating system and apps from ever writing to the hard drive. That means the VPN can't know who you are or what you're doing. It's a whole new standard of privacy and security. That was a feature that the third-party auditors looked at, and they said, yep, Trusted Server works exactly as advertised. ExpressVPN is the fastest VPN I've ever used, and I think $7 a month, which is what it costs, is absolutely appropriate for the level of service you're getting, and you do get a 30-day money-back guarantee. So are you ready to secure your connection, to protect yourself from snoopers? Take back your online privacy and security with ExpressVPN. Protect your online activity today. We've got a good deal for you. 3 months, extra months free with a 1-year package. at expressvpn.com/MacBreak. Express, EXPRESS, spell it out, expressvpn.com/MacBreak. 3 extra months free with a 1-year package when you go to expressvpn.com/MacBreak. Did we get Andy back? Andy was kicked out of his library, I think.
No. For some reason, Skype decided to disconnect all my USB.
Oh, thank you,
And then I had to
Skype.
force quit it in order to restart it.
Well, I thought when you disappeared, I thought, oh crap, we overwent his time.
No. That's
Okay.
it. I have a chair wedged up against the door. So
They call that the Andy Ihnatko Memorial Chair of Broadcast Journalism. Let's see. That rumor continues about the 16-inch MacBook Pro, the one I want. You were saying, Alex, that the current MacBook Pros are barely Pro. This is the MacBook Pro. It's what Andy calls the Pro Squared. Will be a 16-inch screen in the roughly a 15-inch. In fact, the rumor is now, this is Chance Miller writing in 9 to 5 Mac. He's basing it on an analyst's note from IHS. Jeff Lynn says the production of the new MacBook Pro will start next month, which aligns with the rumors of an October release. The 16-inch model will use the Coffee Lake H processors, the same used by the current MacBook Pro. That's a little disappointing. I was hoping maybe those new Ice.
They don't have an Ethernet jack.
So it's not professional.
No,
You're just stirring up trouble, aren't you?
If it's just a bunch of USB-Cs, it's
Up
like,
to 8 cores. Up to 8 cores. Up
it's
to 8
fine.
cores.
And an Ethernet jack.
But you know, Leo,
Thunderbolt,
when Intel announces
Ethernet
a new
is fast.
generation,
Go
when
ahead.
Intel announces a new generation, it could take a generation to get here.
I think that might be it because Ice Lake was announced for mobile, but last
Yes,
week.
but which specific chips have been announced and which are actually released,
yeah.
and when will they be released? Could take a year to figure out.
It used to be that Apple was the first to use new Intel chips. Almost always.
They still are. In many cases, they'll have you'll see like a new computer will come out and the chip won't be on Intel site. It'll maybe be like on Intel Singapore buried at the bottom, but it'll be custom. Apple does almost everything customized. And this will still be the case. It just means that Apple doesn't usually take the first ones are usually very cookie cutter, but Apple wants like the different graphics options and the different, they want everything done the way they want them. And those usually take 6 to 8 to 12 months. Yeah. After announcement to come out.
So, okay, fine. We'll take the Coffee Lake H processor. 8 core should make a difference. I like the idea of a 16-inch screen in a roughly a 15-inch form factor, but that begs the question, well, then what happens to the 15 inches? Lynn says it is confirmed from OEM and panel supplier that 15.4-inch MacBook Pro production will end in November. I am pretty sure, he says, that a MacBook 15.4 will be end of life. So
my guess is they keep it around, and I think Guo said that too, because there's going to be a price hike just based off the technology they're using, and the best way to mitigate a price hike is to keep existing options around. If not, and they just lowered the price for a lot of the built-to-order options and the base models all just went down, and I think that's a good way to stop price shock for people who see the 16-inch model and maybe all the technology associated with it.
Be nice if you could get more RAM in it. Is that an issue for you, Alex, the 16 gig limit? Would you want 32 if you could get it?
I mean, I would always put more in if I could. I've kind of just given up. I haven't
you just don't
upgraded
do
to the
them.
new ones. I
just don't do them.
use
can get 32
desktops
on
for
this.
stuff that I want to
Can
do
you?
heavy lifting.
Oh, the refresh has 32, doesn't it?
Yes, it's the 13-inch that doesn't have 32, and that's something that Ice Lake is again supposed to fix.
Okay.
It's hard to get all these things into the chips, Leo. Intel's trying, but it's hard to get DisplayPort standards. It's hard to get the low power RAM because the 13-inch still uses the low power DDR RAM, and that's still on 3. It hasn't moved to 4 yet. It's troublesome, Leo.
Apple has been granted a patent for Face ID on Macintosh with a smart auto wake feature. This is Ben Lovejoy writing at 9 to 5 Mac. It's for a more intelligent version of Face ID than you see on the iPhone right now. It could allow the Mac camera to do 2 things. If there's someone in front of the machine, it won't go to sleep. I guess that's good. And then the second function, he's deciphering what he calls dense patentees to say that perhaps it looks like the Mac can automatically wake and log you in even if it's sleeping when you approach it. In other words, it'd be watching even as it sleeps. It sees you and says, oh, hi. Hi, Leo.
Hello.
I know the security, but that's still creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, It's pretty complicated though when you think about it. When you want to put a Face ID inside a phone, you kind of know how people are going to be facing the phone and how far away the phone's going to be. On a Mac, you don't know if they've got it on an arm. They don't know if they got it up high, up low. They don't know when should the Face ID actually activate, and should it activate every time it sees the face? Like when I just simply remembered that I forgot to pull my phone off the charger, if I just simply duck back into my office, grab the phone, is that going to unlock the Mac? And now do I have to manually relock it because I'm not sitting down? I'm just grabbing my phone. I happen to stick my face into the magic cone that unlocks my Mac and makes it available to everybody inside the house. So it's a really complicated idea.
Yeah, and we should point out, it's just a patent. It doesn't even mean they've solved it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a patent.
Well, the Google post from last week was super interesting because they were using solely, in addition to a very Face ID-like sensor, to detect you approaching the phone so it could get ready to unlock, where Face ID still depends on you either tapping the screen or the accelerometer registering you lifting up the phone in order for it to activate. And that also gets into exactly what Andy's describing. I don't necessarily want it unlocked all the time I'm looking at it, and I not necessarily want it looking all the time I don't have it unlocked.
And typically there's preferences for that. I mean, to decide when it's going to unlock it and how it's going to unlock it. I think that if we look at this in combination with sign-in with Apple, I think it's really interesting because we're really moving away, as an Apple user, I think we're moving away from passwords, where you're going to be able to log in and it's going to be biometric for everything. And when we think about it, ease of use, I mean, I am just getting to the point where I can't remember. I mean, I even have LastPass and I have other things, but I'm just tired of passwords. Like now.
I know what you mean.
Like I'm like now.
Passwords in general are on the way out.
If I go into iTunes and I sign up for something, and then you ask me to now I have to fill out another thing and give you a password and an email, half the time now I'm just like, no, I'm not going to.
But I have to point out, with all of that Face ID and whatever, Apple still asks me for my iTunes password every third purchase. It drives me nuts. It's like, you know who I am? I'm logged into my phone. Why are you asked? You don't get asked for your password all the time?
No.
Not me either anymore.
Yeah.
When I restart,
I have to remember what my password is.
No, I get asked. In fact, you could say, don't ask for the password for 15 minutes after I give it to you once.
It just looks at it always just looks at my face and just
Well,
goes,
I don't know why, but I still have to enter my password far too often on my iPhone.
Apple
Should
doesn't like
almost
you,
never
yeah.
have to.
Yeah, never.
Yeah.
So with regards to the Face ID on Mac and the proximity complaints that you guys are talking about, you have to keep in mind that Apple Watch does that. It uses proximity when you walk into a room and grab your phone, for example. If you're wearing your Apple Watch and you have open with Apple Watch, it'll do something very similar and say, do you want to open your Mac right now? And you can walk away from it and it'll shut down. So this idea of like Face ID on Mac to me doesn't seem that much different than Apple ID on Mac. It's just that it's using the proximity of your body instead of the proximity
and
of
for
your
me,
eyes.
it's as soon as I move my mouse. So as soon as I move my mouse on my iPad or my iMac, it just pops open and uses my watch and goes in. Like that's
so fast.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it just doesn't like me. I don't know.
You got to retrain it.
According to Ming-Chi Kuo, Apple is going to reduce in not this year, not next year, but in 2021, a phone with both Face ID and an underscreen Touch ID.
Ming-Chi Kuo versus Barclays in the battle for which future version of the iPhone will have Touch ID back.
How can he even know what it's going to do in basically?
So this isn't normal. Normally what he does is brokers deals with supply chain to get access to schematics and things and deals. But this is him conjecturing, saying that the technology right now, the original ones were capacitive and those work pretty well. The new ones are either ultrasonic or optical. They don't work really well. But he's saying that within the next 2 years, the size of the modules, the resilience of the technology, the reliability of it are all going to go down to the point where he thinks Apple will re-adopt them and offer them together with Face ID and
I don't think
Touch
they
ID.
need to wait to 2021. Look at this. This is the OnePlus 7 Pro, which has a optical underscreen scanner. Can you show my phone? You see that fingerprint right there, which looks a lot like the one that 9to5Mac is using. But watch, when I touch the fingerprint, watch how fast it works. It's very accurate. Now, maybe there's a security issue with it, but it is just as fast as Apple's old physical.
They're getting
button.
better, and Qualcomm's
Getting
ultrasonic
better.
one,
This is
which
as good as
Apple
this is
has
as good as. In
access
fact,
to.
I prefer this to Face ID. So my question is, I mean, now the only thing I don't know is maybe that's insecure. Maybe like Here, go ahead. You use it and see if you can get it to unlock. No.
But
No.
Leo now has my thumbprint.
Thank you very much. I'll be using it.
See, Leo, that works for you, but not for YouTubers. And the Apple ID works for us, but not for you.
So there are YouTubers going on saying the OnePlus 7 Pro fingerprint reader doesn't work?
I think all of them, because you watch a lot of videos and sometimes just hit, sometimes just miss. I haven't seen that one specifically, but they have been.
I don't trust nitwit YouTubers. Let me tell you, it works.
The Galaxy S10 was
the S10 was terrible. No. And I have an S10 right here. I'll show you. The S10 is very disappointing in terms of it's using an ultrasonic fingerprint reader.
Yeah.
So I think the optical ones see the same little thing there, but you saw how long that took. It took twice as long.
And I think the idea is that the one Apple wants to use covers a huge amount of the screen, so you don't really have to care about where you put your finger. It's just as you pick it up to use it, it unlocks.
Well, okay. I mean, it wasn't a hardship to put my finger on a physical reader.
My guess is that Apple doesn't want TouchID or FaceID. They want an eventual system that just understands biometrics, and if you happen to touch it, it unlocks. If you happen to look at it, it unlocks. If it happens to recognize your gait, if it happens to hear your voice, eventually we shouldn't have to actively unlock anymore. The device should always be sort of at a threshold of trust as we use it.
Threshold of trust.
What I'd like to see Apple do in the future.
Go ahead.
I'd like to see Apple allow the option to have biometric and passcode unlock, because I think there's the camp of people who will only always ever use a passcode because that they feel that that's more secure, and the camp that feel that they always want to use Touch ID or Face ID because it's convenient and it is secure. But then there's also a group of people out there in the world who think that biometric and password scanning is the absolute definitive most protective way. And especially when you're hearing some of these crazy things that are coming out of other countries of being slapped in the face and forced to look at your camera so that it unlocks Face ID, if we can have the option to always use a passcode and always, in addition to using our biometric scan, that allows us to decide not just, oh, I better lock my phone before the police catch me when I'm at a protest, but just 100% of the time have a passcode that you would enable in addition to your facial scan or your fingerprint scan. So I think it'd be great if we just had the option.
Okay. Your option's probably good for everybody. Claris is back, baby.
Claris works.
FileMaker changed its name back to Claris. What? Remember Claris, 1987?
Isn't it Claris Works?
Claris Works, which is awesome.
Yep. You can date yourself really fast if you can just punch out Claris Works.
They did Mac Write, Mac Paint, and FileMaker. Apple spun them off in 1987. Claris is the moo cow.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
It's the dog that moos.
Woof.
Woof. The dog that woofs. I don't know what it is. In 1998, Apple spun it back in, but they kept FileMaker out. And Claris changed its name to FileMaker because it didn't do Mac Paint, Mac Write, or any of the other stuff.
So now
only did
FileMaker. A paint program?
FileMaker's changed its name to Claris International. FileMaker will stay FileMaker. The reason for the move, according to TechCrunch, quoting CEO Brad Freitag, is because the company is starting to, yes, you nailed it, look beyond its core FileMaker product. God, I didn't even know these guys were still around.
Yeah. And yeah. Well, shows you how valuable it is when you create a product that isn't really for consumers. It's for people who run their entire industry on it. It doesn't matter if it's not flashy. It doesn't matter if it's not reinventing anything. The fact that someone created this FileMaker database in 1994 and they've never found anything better than what some consultant or some temp did 20 years ago, they're willing to keep upgrading because it just works.
According to FileMaker, more than 1 million end users working at 50,000 different companies use FileMaker today. It's been profitable for 80 consecutive quarters. They acquired an Italian company called Stamplay, which makes tools for connecting the APIs of various enterprise tools, and they're releasing that as a product called Claris Connect, a tool for integrating various cloud services and automating workflows between them. So it makes sense. You wouldn't want to call it FileMaker Connect because that'd be confusing. So, okay. Okay. I mean, I think actually I knew FileMaker was still around. I even looked at it for doing an in-house solution for our sales team because it's perfect for that, right? It's cross-platform. It runs a server. It's form-focused, so it's very easy to design a UI.
Right, especially if you're doing secure, you don't want to put it in the cloud.
It's a database.
You want to buy it and not have to pay a subscription. You have people who already know how to use it. It doesn't take very long to figure it out. I mean, I've sat down and built FileMaker databases
for years. I've been doing that.
Yeah, really fast. Like, I just need to organize this data and have, like, a lot of times it's like I want to input things quickly into something and then build it out into a spreadsheet or build it out into something, and I can build. And a lot of what we would do with it is I built lots of different interfaces for different people with different access to different data. But I can design it to look exactly the way I want it to look for this person, so it's really easy for them to do at, let's say, a point of sale, and this person who's managing something else in the back end. And you can kind of do that with relatively low code. I mean, everything's just drag and drop. You just have to know where it all is. It's a great. I mean, I will say that I've been using FileMaker for.
Since it was an Apple product.
Yeah. So it's
since 1998.
And even now, I think, I'm going to go try to do this in Zoho. I'm going to do it in Salesforce or whatever. And I get in there and a web interface, and I start going through it. And I'm like, I'm just going to go back to FileMaker.
FileMaker's so straightforward. Yeah, it's not. I mean, it can be a relational database, but it's really more like
it is a relational. No, that's
a full
one of the
relational database.
It's a full relational database. That's one of the big powers of FileMaker is that you can build the much more complex interactions between those pieces.
Okay. So cool. I'm glad it's still around. It does say FileMaker and Apple's subsidiary. So I guess Apple is still are they the owner of or part owner? Or?
Yes. They've owned it for a long time, but it's been run as a separate company.
Oh, okay. It's autonomous, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. A subsidiary of Apple. All right. They say they have actually some big plans in terms of other companies to acquire, other technologies to add. So
they're going to make a FileMaker watch and a FileMaker earphones.
I don't think so. I don't know if that's in the.
Definitely solutions. I think that there is a big opportunity gap between shortcuts and Swift. There's of writing code and having a very simple step-by-step.
Can AppleScript and Automator sit in that space?
Well, I don't think so. I think that AppleScript is still too far towards Swift. I mean, if I'm going to learn AppleScript, to me, I might as well learn Swift.
Yeah.
And Automator, the problem with Automator was always it's similar for me to shortcuts, which is that it was very like this to this to this to this. What I really want is nodal interface that programs. So I want to be able to draw a complex interaction. I want to take this data and I want to give it to 3 different nodes, and I want them to do something, and I want them to come back and do another thing. And that for
it looked like that new
exist.
Swift UI might give you some of that capability.
A little. I mean, I'm deep in Swift right now, so
are you?
Yeah. So it's not. The Swift UI is exciting. It definitely makes a lot of it easier, but it's not. What I'm talking about is like there's no
coding at all.
Like
you just connect modules.
Yeah.
Let's take a break and get ready your picks as we wrap up this episode of MacBreak Weekly, or we get ready to anyway. Our show today brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. They've been with us for so long. I'm so glad to have them back. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Finding the right house is not easy, but finding the right mortgage is a lot easier thanks to Rocket Mortgage. They're doing more to help you understand the home buying process so you can get exactly what you need. Because you know what? It's not just a mortgage. This is your mortgage. This is your new house. Their team of mortgage experts are obsessed with finding a better way. That means their number one goal, to make the home buying process smoother for you. And of course, as they have for years, award-winning client service and support every step of the way at Rocket Mortgage. Industry-leading online lending technology. They've helped millions of Americans achieve their dream of home ownership, and now 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination, 5 years in a row for mortgage servicing. For information about the J.D. Power Award, visit jdpower.com. That's pretty high praise, highest in customer satisfaction in the entire country. When you work with Rocket Mortgage, you get more than just a loan, because Rocket Mortgage is more than just a lender. All you got to do, go to rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. Take the first step toward the home of your dreams. Get started online today. rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. I've talked to so many of our listeners who are happy Rocket Mortgage users. Why don't you join that list? Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. And MLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. It's Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Push button. Get mortgage with Rocket Mortgage. Alex, Lindsay, we haven't seen you in so long. I hope you have a very, very expensive pick of the week that I can purchase right now. Nothing at all?
No, I have a. It's not expensive. That's all. I mean, I have a great.
Man. I was saving up for your reemergence.
I know. I should have thought of that when I came out. The update. There was an update to AudioKit Synth 1 synthesizer. These guys are just crushing it. That's all I got to say. I mean, you should go up to their website as well. To AudioKit, they build AudioKit is a backend for developers to build great audio into their apps. But they also have a whole series of apps, and this one I believe is free. And this is, I already have it installed, so it's always hard to figure out how much it costs, but I'm pretty sure it's free. But AudioKit synthesizer, it's just amazing. I mean, you can just sit there. I was sitting on the flight playing with it, and it was just it's this incredible little synthesizer that gives you all kinds of ways of adjusting stuff, that you'd have in a full-blown synthesizer, but it's completely... I believe this is a free version. They have a $14, $15 version that is, has a lot more tools to it, which is called, there's FM Player, which I think is free as well. And they also have the digital D1, which is, has a lot more tools, kind of built into it. What they've done is genius. They have a handful of apps, and then they have this back end that people can use to add audio to it. And so there's so many options here, and it's just worth going to their website, checking out what they're doing there, downloading, buying. If you're interested in playing with music and having fun with music and playing with synthesizers, I got these installed on my daughter's iPad. She's really into music. She builds stuff in GarageBand that I was listening to it, and I was like, "Who is that?" And she's like, "That was me."
That's cool, isn't it?
And all she did is she went as a slight side note. If you think that the free Apple classes at the stores are cheap and not very well run, you're completely misguided. And because if you haven't, anybody who thinks that hasn't been to one. Like my kids went to a GarageBand thing and they came back as musicians. It was kind of I couldn't believe what they learned how to do. And so now I've been she's slowly moving into Logic and into these apps for building her synths, and so she's. It's easy enough to get into it as a 10-year-old, but it's deep enough that even if you're a very skilled musician, there's a lot to dig in here, and there's a lot that you can add to what you're doing. And so it's an incredible solution. So there's a couple different apps that they make. One is the digital D1. That one costs like $15, and then there's FM Player and Synth 1. Just get them all. Just go get all of those and sit and play. They're slightly different, and two of them are free. So,
wow.
But just one of the coolest companies I think out there right now in what they're doing. I started in audio, so I admit that I lean audio, but it's just incredible solutions that they're putting together right now.
I see your synthesizer, and I raise you a pocket operator from Teenage Engineering.
Wow. Oh,
what?
Mr. Cool.
Mr. Cool. So these are, I got one. It's a calculator sized synthesizer, so it's a pocket operator. I'll play you some of the sounds. They range in price from $49 to they're just under $100. It's a Swedish company, and what they did, they found a really cheap chip. It's like it was used for traffic lights or something, and they've made these little synthesizers that don't sound cheap at all. In fact, I'll play. This is the speak that I have here. I'll play what it sounds like, so you can hear it. But the thing is, it's in your pocket, because let me show you mine real quickly. And I have a little rubber case on it because it's basically a bare circuit board with a bunch of buttons, some knobs, and even a little LCD display that does cartoonish things. Oh my gosh. You can make it your alarm. It has a little speaker on it, but you could also plug it into headphones or any external jack. And it has an input, so you can record new sounds. You can record, you can play back. It is really wild. This, for $49, I think something you want to kind of keep in your pocket. and just pull out while you're on the subway and just make some music.
Yeah.
Is that
Those
wild? Now, are you familiar with these, Andy?
Absolutely. I've come so close to buying one so many times because if you go on YouTube, you'll find people just going from start to finish, just building this really cool piece of music or just this really cool loop just by starting with boom, 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 boom. Then what am I going to add to that? And then how am I going to modify that? And then can I play something that's sort of live by twisting this knob over that? And it just looks like the most fun thing ever.
Fun. Yeah, and you can record it and output it. Now, I bought the Speak because that one comes with a microphone, so it can sample. It's got 120 seconds of sample memory, so that's quite a bit. 2 minutes of samples is quite a bit.
That cost me a lot of money in 1989.
Yeah, 8 voice characters, 8 effects. You can transpose scale, you can change scale, you can slow it down, speed it up. It's got replaceable drum sounds, $89. And then I spent a little more to get the little rubber sleeve because I feel like this is going to get damaged if I don't. Yeah. It even has a little metal stand that you can put up so you can just put it on your desk and every once in a while start a new tune. I just think this is so cool.
Yeah, and they make so many different flavors of them. It's not like they have this one has more memory. This one has an extra output. No, they'll do. Well, how about we do a Rick and Morty version of it?
There's a Rick and Morty version for crying out loud.
Where the LCD will have like Rick and Morty characters, have pre samples, and it's like, oh my god, this is exactly what music is supposed to be about. Just killing time on the subway and just having so much fun, and then by the time you get to your stop, you're like, oh my god, I accidentally created something really cool that I actually want to save.
Teenage Engineering makes some actual real big boy synthesizers, the ODM synthesizers that cost thousands. This is their $50
I guess you start.
They make a I can't remember the name of it, but it looks like the old like Casio calculator keyboard. But it's another one of these devices that costs $900. But this one is like even more ambitious, where it's easier to play notes, it's easier to mix. It even has like a sampler there. Yeah, that's it on the left.
The portable Wonder synthesizer, which now that I have the $50 version, I'm really tempted.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was the point. That was like you get
that's for you.
You talk about how much they understand having fun. That synthesizer even has like an FM radio in it, so you can tune into the radio and then just be listening to a station. And when you hear like a Glenn Miller riff on an old D station, you can just hear "I'm just a vagabond." Oh gee, I'm going to sample that. Boom, and then that's a loop on the thing that you're doing. It's like, oh my god, if I had the sort of money where I could blow $900 on a toy that I definitely wouldn't use for 3 or 4 months, but then would be playing with so much that I would lose focus on the things that make me money, then I would definitely buy that thing. But the pocket operator is definitely something that I can afford.
As little as $50. I mean, how cool is that? How cool is that? Yeah,
exactly.
And I bought for $10 the extra little protection.
The perfect stocking stuffer.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, honestly, this would be a great thing to give a kid because
this is another one to just go look at their website. It is like we just play with audio. Like that's what it feels like. When I look at it, they make speakers.
Yeah.
They make
the story is great. They even sell incense for some reason. So I can't recommend this more highly. It's just a load of fun and at $50. Although the one I got was a little more expensive because there's an input. So you can
unlike all the phones, they have headphone jacks still.
They still see. There's a reason for a headphone jack, kids. Lory Gill, pick of the week.
Well, first of all, it sounds like everybody wants to start a band. So let's
Lory,
get our instruments and get together.
Lory.
We want to join yours.
Yeah, sick burn.
Bring your pocket instruments with you.
Can I come on stage and play this with you while you sing?
Yes.
That'd be so nerdy.
That would be so fun.
So nerdy.
You got to wear a helmet.
Man, if I would have thought about using electronic instruments when I was first learning how to play music, I'd be so much further along right now than I am.
Well, it's changing the world, isn't it? I mean, this is amazing. For sure. Yeah.
All right. So my pick this week is actually an old and new game. It's the game Journey by That Game Company.
I love Journey.
I have never played it before, so I just started this morning, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Annapurna Interactive. So cool.
Yeah, it just launched on the App Store this morning.
They have another one that's a kind of newer that's the same idea. So if you like this, I got a second one for you.
Yeah, it's Sky, the Children of Light. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and they're very similar. They have the same kind of exploratory idea where you just kind of walk in not knowing anything about what you're doing, and you just go figure it out. And you do a little bit of puzzle solving, but it's really just a lot of like finding and collecting things. In this story, you're collecting glyphs that extend the scarf that you have. And actually, Leo, you might even know more about the story than I do because I just started playing it. I haven't played it before. But I love the way it looks and
Isn't
sounds.
it beautiful?
It's so relaxing.
This was a huge indie game on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And it gave me real hope for the future of gaming because you don't shoot anybody. You explore, and it's beautiful. It just feels great. Yeah.
Yeah, and the music is extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw this, and actually when Sky came out, I felt the same way. This is the kind of game that I want Apple Arcade to have. So I'm hoping that what we're seeing here is that, though these games they've been around for a while, I would love to see that Apple Arcade is going to have nothing but, or at least a huge section of games that are just like this, where they're atmospheric, they sound good, they look good, they're relaxing, they're engaging. I'm just having fun with that already, and I've only been playing it for a good 20 minutes. I think I just barely passed the first chapter. So
nice. Yeah, it's really. I agree with you 100%. $5.
Beautiful.
Journey from Annapurna Design. Is there a Mac version as well as an iOS version? I don't know.
I think the last time it came out on anything, it was just on the PlayStation 3. So yeah.
Really cool.
So.
Really cool. Thank you. Great pick. Thank you, Lory. Rene, Ritchie, what do you got for us?
All right, Leo Laporte, I'm going to spend you some Alex Lindsay dollars.
Yeah, I'm ready.
There you go.
Although I have to say, if this OP1 portable synthesizer were not sold out, I would be $1,300 poorer right now.
There you go.
But go ahead.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned this before, but when I first got it, it was hella expensive, and now it's just sort of half a hella expensive. But it's Samsung's X5 portable SSD drive, and I pre-ordered it when it first came out, and it was like $1,400. Now I've seen it as low as $600 sometimes. Right now it's down to around $850. Now that's
for 2 terabytes, we should say.
That's for 2 terabytes. Yeah, absolutely. And it is small. It is really oddly shaped. It does run super, super hot. So if you like to complain about thermals, boy, do I have a drive for you. But what it does is transfer data so fast. And previously, I didn't have a lot of storage on my MacBook Pro because I didn't want to be subject to losing that storage. But as I do more and more Final Cut Pro work, just not having to deal with external drives day to day is so nice. Like, especially when traveling, it is so great to just have 2 terabytes on a computer. But then I do sometimes need more space, and I also do want to back it up. And backing it up over USB, to a USB 3 to a platter drive is just excruciatingly slow.
Yeah.
Again, especially when you're traveling. And this is just so fast. It's hard. It is an acceleration like a supercar on the Autobahn fast. It makes other drives feel prehistorically slow when you go back to them. So if you have the money, it's less money now than it was before. But if you have the money and transfer speed is really important to you, this is an excellent companion drive to a MacBook Pro.
I think what's important about this is we're starting to see more Thunderbolt 3 drives and accessories, and they're falling to a price where they're now at least something you could consider. This is basically, I think, Samsung's Evo, NVMe-based Evo in a case.
Yeah,
right? Exactly
that.
Yeah. So, and a Thunderbolt 3 case at that. So that's part of the price. But that's pretty awesome. That is, I think I did just buy it.
It's like living in the future.
As a matter of fact. I mean, it's hard not to. 2 terabytes, so 850. Yeah. This is made for travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
It might actually pry my my portable drives out of my. I have stacks of just raw SSDs, and then I have this Thunderbolt SSD reader that somebody made that they don't make anymore, and I still slide them in, hook them to my Thunderbolt.
Yeah,
and I keep on looking at these drives, going, well,
they're hot, but they're good.
Yeah, no, they look great.
Yeah, do you think the heat is an issue?
I mean, some people just don't like it because it's hot, but Apple itself determined years ago that running at thermal max is not a problem for them. They've run the watch at thermal maximum. They've run the the MacBook Pro at thermal maximum, and they don't see it as an issue. So Samsung is a smart vendor too, and they make all this technology. So I'm going to trust them. Maybe I'll live to regret it. But
that's an important point. This is their drive, their NVMe drive in there. So
I do when you get a kind of an unknown maker in there. And they get really hot, I worry. When something like Samsung, it gets really hot, I'm like, well, they must have thought about this a little.
Yeah, and I've had the T1, the T2, all of these little USB
They've all worked
Samsungs.
great.
They've been great. They do get hot. That's just the nature of the game.
Yep.
Sold.
Sorry, Leo.
Sorry.
You're welcome, Leo.
Andy and Ihnatko, let's wrap it up with your pick of the week.
I got something really special. A lot of people who listen to the show probably know who J. Michael Straczynski is. Some of them are such big fans of him that they can even spell his name correctly without checking. I am on that list. He's an amazing creator. I first learned of him because he created the series Babylon 5, one of the greatest science fiction serial TV dramas ever made. Even though it was made in the 1990s, it still is one of the things you want to try to beat creatively. He also wrote Murder, She Wrote. He also wrote the real Ghostbusters. He wrote basically he's been writing. He wrote the movie Changeling, directed by Clint Eastwood. World War Z. He's just like writer, just super writer. And so he's written an autobiography / memoir called Becoming Superman. And it's hard for me to describe how good a book this is, because already I was interested. He actually got to read an advanced copy to provide a quote. And I was like, oh, great, I'm going to learn about what it was like to all these behind the scenes stuff about Babylon 5 and what it was like to write for Angela Lansbury. And no, this is an amazingly powerful story of this kid who grew up with a father who was actively devoid of human empathy. To the point of almost being an evil character. And how J. Michael Straczynski, as a kid, developed a keen sense of empathy despite that, and maybe almost as a screw you to his father, that he's going to learn, he's going to be a kind person, he's going to be thoughtful, he's going to be generous. The story of his parents and his upbringing just keeps taking all of these incredible turns. And then when he moves out of the house as a late teenager, even then the adventure just gets weirder and weirder and weirder as he starts to look into like what was our family's actual past versus what were the family stories about our actual past in Europe. How did like Dad spend World War II in Germany? All this really interesting stuff. On top of all that, though, it is, again, an amazing story about the power and the importance of empathy, about learning that there are other people in this world. They all have feelings. Your experiences are not necessarily going to be this other person's experiences, and that you really are nothing if you don't learn to acknowledge and celebrate the humanity of other people. And of course, it's also, of course, a personal story. Becoming Superman, is the title because he says that Superman literally like saved his life, because he thought, well, here's in the comic books, here is this character that is not like his father, that is going to save people, is going to rescue people, and he decided to model himself after Superman and not after his father. The best thing I can say about it, though, is that this is the story. This is a memoir. This is a story told by someone who is a master storyteller. So it's not just sort of dragging you from incident to incident. He really has time and perspective and knows how to mold this into a story that's relevant for pretty much everybody reading it. It's not just him doing a confessional. It really, there's at least 3 times during the reading of this book that I really did have to just, I told him that it's a good length book. I told him, okay, I'll try to have a quote for you in about a week, because I knew that's about as long as it would take. And it took me much longer than that, because there are a couple of points where I just had to. I'm there like at the diner, like, okay, I'm closing this book. I'm going to put it aside for 3 or 4 days because I need to process stuff, and I also need to sort of recover emotionally from things that I've been reading. Amazing book. The audiobook also is read by Peter Jurassic, who played Londo Mollari on Babylon 5. So there's also that. Again, wow. Highest recommendation. Adding
it to my Audible queue for the next time I get a credit. That looks really Great. Becoming Superman, My Journey from Poverty to Hollywood, J. Michael Straczynski. Introduction by Neil Gaiman. That's for bonus. That's pretty good. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Andy Ihnatko. You hear him every week on Boston Public Radio, WGBH. Look for him in your local library, kids.
Yes, we're at the Boston Public Library on Friday. I'll be tweeting out what time. It's probably going to be about 12:30. But yep, get a cookie, get a coffee, which you will have to pay for. But then watch the entire show. It'll be fun.
No free coffee, man. There's no
public supported. We can't. We wouldn't want the coffee we could afford to give away for free.
Yes, that's true. That's a good point. Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate it. Rene Ritchie, he's at imore.com, and don't forget his great Vector show at imore.com/Vector. What's coming up on Vector?
I've got Neil Seibart on the show later today, talking all about how to view Apple in a post-iPhone world. And then tomorrow, Daniel Bader from Android Central is going to join me to talk all about the Galaxy Note 10 event.
That's right. In fact, we'll be streaming that live tomorrow at about, noon, Karsten?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to watch our live stream of the event, Jason Howell will be joining me, and also, of course, Jeff Jarvis and Stacey Higginbotham immediately after for This Week in Google. We shall be talking about the Note 10. Yeah, that's exciting. Thank you, Rene. Thank you, Lory Gill. She's managing editor at iMore and lead singer of the best punk band in the world, Sick Burn.
Don't let anybody hear you say that.
I'm saying it for all and sundry. Just because
we would be the best band if you brought your pocket
they had
operator
their new
and joined us on stage.
synthesizer player with them. I've just written a song for you. You might enjoy it. I call this Sick Burn Rocks. Lory, thank you for being here. Find her at imore.com. She's Appaholic on the Twitter. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. Hope you're going to be back for a little longer.
I'm going to disappear for a little bit.
He's off again.
Yeah, I came out of my hole to see how things are. Everybody's still alive. Everybody's doing well, so I'm going to disappear for a bit. But I'm spending a lot of time on Twitter. We have solved the mystery of what is the best Star Trek Next Generation episode. This was a Inner Light.
How do you know? Is it like well known?
I asked. Well, first, so
John said it immediately.
Yes.
So, it's me. It's me, wasn't it?
So the
Data state.
You know the
Data state.
So I was having a discussion about that with somebody, and I was certain that it was Inner Light, and they were certain that it was yesterday's Enterprise, and we were going back and forth. So then I decided, without saying anything, I put it up on Twitter. I was like, okay, everyone, give me your favorite one. And so then everyone kind of threw a whole bunch of stuff into Twitter. Then I went up and said, okay, vote on it. And so I put the vote up of the top 4, and that was like Inner Light,
Darmok, The Measure of a Man, and Yesterday's Enterprise. Not even
close. If Yesterday's Enterprise had Kirk, it would have won.
Sorry?
If Yesterday's Enterprise had Kirk, it would have won.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, for some reason, I've really just settled into Twitter. I don't really do anything else. So
this is a great use. This is probably the right use for Twitter.
No, I'm having so much fun with it. I just started like slowing down and I'm not going to do a bunch of different social networks, and so I'm just on Twitter. So if you want to see me play on Twitter,
nice.
And what I'm really working on right now is like kind of audience interaction. So asking people questions and then doing little things, and just because it entertains me. I don't have any other good reason.
The Inner Light, 36%, 195 votes. I think it's a clear winner.
Yes.
Data state.
You didn't even have that on here. Whatever he's saying over and over.
Data state.
I just watched that last week, coincidentally.
I've never seen any of those, but okay. You know what I should do is I should watch all of the top candidates and give you my opinion.
Yes.
Or just watch the entire series.
How many episodes? Thousands?
No, there's too many. There's a list of the essential episodes. Just watch those.
Essential TNG.
How do we do
after you've watched all the Marvel movies?
Which I also
and all
have
the
not
Game of
seen.
Thrones.
I guess I'm just not a good nerd.
And Babylon 5 seasons 1 through 4.
Yes. Oh my God.
I'm going to read the Straczynski book. Isn't that enough? We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday. Supposed to be 11 a.m. Pacific. We were a little late today, but that's been the case lately because of our lengthy iOS Today shows. You know what? Tune in all day Tuesday because there's lots of great stuff on Twitch starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. But we'll be on roughly around 11 a.m. 2 p.m. Eastern. That would be 1700 UTC. The stream is always available, twit.tv/live, audio and video. If you're on the stream, you should be on the chat at irc.twit.tv, talking amongst the other folks watching live. You can also get on-demand versions of this show and everything we do on our website, twit.tv. In the case of this show, it's twit.tv/MBW for MacBreak Weekly. But do me a favor, click one of those buttons you'll find right at the top of the page and subscribe. That way you'll get a copy the minute it's available, ready for you to enjoy at your leisure. twit.tv/MBW. Thanks for joining us, everybody. But now, as Alex Lindsay has said many times before, it's time to get back to work because break time is over.